Welcome back to the Eric Krown crypto channel, wishing you a happy, healthy, Stochastic macro Sunday morning over here as we get prepared for a big one. It's probably going to be a bit of a longer video. I prepared a lot of charts for you. Yes, a lot of charts are ready for the viewing right now. I'm going to update the shit out of you. It's like I always love it when I see on Twitter. It's like, follow me for more charts. I will update you, bro. It's like, okay, thanks for the update, man. I hope to see more of it. Anyways, without further ado, let's just jump right on into it. I want to waste no more time, and I want to start off first with a lower term, relatively the lower term time frame. So this is the lowest time frame that we're going to look at today. It's going to be a daily. The rest of this is going to be focused purely on the very high term time frames. When I say very high term time frames, I'm talking like, the next few months of price action, what we're looking at, and we're looking at the question of, is the major low in or not? Kind of where are we within that? Maybe a bit of an update there. Maybe a bit of an update. I'm going to update the shit out of you and then tap your supply. Other than that, we can see right here on the daily HPDR range indicator, we can see Bitcoin still getting kind of rejected right in that $25,000 region. I don't know if I'd call it a full-on rejection just yet, but basically the range for today, as far as I'm concerned, is the same as before. To the downside on the daily, 23, median coming in right around 25, and top side of the 50% of historical returns range highs is about mid 26s. So what does that essentially mean? If we see a daily closure above shallow 25s, that's what I'd be expecting the next sort of, tremendous move to the upside. In this case, somewhere around mid 26s is where I'd be looking for. But the big focus today is, of course, going to be on the 5-day time frame. The 5-day time frame closes tonight alongside the weekly, and it is very important because of the Gaussian channel indicator, as we can see right here. Basically, I need to explain the relationship that this is seen historically throughout the full history of Bitcoin, where basically, I am being redundant, but what I mean to say is that anytime that this indicator is turned red and Bitcoin's, traded below the bottom side of it and then crawled back into it, while it was also red. So this would be a good example over here. Turns red, gets kicked out, crawls back in. Bitcoin's gotten a free ride, at least to the median band. And then the question is, does the median band reject or does it accept? If it rejects, expect another test to the downside, as we saw back on over here in 2014, 2015. If it accepts, then another free ride to the top side of the Gaussian channel at minimum. And in 3 out of 4 cases, historically speaking, there's not really that many, but it's the best that we can do for right now. That has led to new all-time high rallies. So in this case, again, another good example would be over here. Boom. New highs after the initial rejection over here. It does retest, and then of course grinds up against the median band, and then onwards and forwards. Same thing over here. This one a full on rejection, retests the lows, and then onwards and forwards, and then same thing over here again, so on and so forth, and also in 2020, and potentially right here as well. So the reason why I bring this one up is because Bitcoin is going to be closing tonight on the 5-day time frame, and if it closes above the median of this channel, which is 24,350, then that would be another good indication that Bitcoin's likely to trade further north in the coming weeks. When I say further north, somewhere around the top side of the Gaussian channel. This is actually rapidly moving down. So currently it's at 28,000 bucks. So coming into tomorrow's next open, that is probably going to be like upper 27s if I had to guess. But ultimately, it kind of set in an area of interest for the more long term for Bitcoin to find the next sort of bit of resistance, if you will, on the higher term timeframes. It's not going to happen in one like massive green dildo. It's not going to be in like one straight line. It's going to be very likely over time if it happens. Anyways, I just need to make sure that I'm actually recording and the microphone's working, and so far so good. Thank God for that. So yes, by the same token, we can see a very clean and obvious way of, at least in my opinion, of a good means of getting bearish again if this were to happen. If Bitcoin were to come back down and take out that current higher low at 21,700 or so on a daily closing basis, or I think on a daily it's maybe like 21.6 or so. At that point, yeah, very likely we'd see a much greater move to the downside, maybe back down to like the upper teens. And then I want to come back to it after that. Until that happens, however, I'm going to be generally bullish on this channel. So no surprises there. Anyways, moving on to the next one. This is something that we spoke about yesterday. And I just want to get the technicals out of the way first today, and then we'll get into the new stuff. But I think this also plays hand in hand with what we just looked at. Again, suggesting that over time, upside more likely than downside. In the very short term, as we referenced over here, does Bitcoin play back down to the bottoms of the range? Maybe, maybe not. I don't have strong opinions on this. Same things yesterday. I just don't have strong opinion on the lower term timeframes. It's a game of higher term timeframes right now, in my opinion. Anyways, this is the silver cross on the 3-day time frame. I'm looking specifically at the yellow 21 exponential moving average right here and the green 55 exponential moving average right here. Again, just blindly playing these is not the best way to be doing any sort of moving averages, and that's why moving averages become a meme, and that's really unfortunate because they're actually tremendously valuable, at least in my opinion. But using them, obviously, that's going to that's going to kind of separate the viability from the non-viability. Anyways, I'm getting distracted here. We saw the silver cross on the 3-day time frame happen as of Sunday the 12th. Officially right here on that higher low. So again, that's also why I would say that as long as Bitcoin is above that pivot, generally speaking, going to be looking up and to the right. And I've gone through and back tested all of the other times that we've seen a bullish cross on these. So when I say bullish cross, I mean the lower period trading above the higher period, the yellow above the green, as you can see over here. And I've measured from that point on price to the next major high, not the next ultimate all-time high, because actually most of the time it typically does make new all-time highs whenever we've seen this. Not always, but greater than 50% chance. And I measured both that first move to the next major high and the days. So the percentage move and then also the days. So again, same thing over here, same thing over here. Even on what this is like very obviously a failure long term, but this was still like a 15% move to the upside. Same thing over here. You get the idea. And like I said, out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 prior iterations. 5 of those have led to new all-time highs. So pretty damn good right there. Anyways, I'll bring you over to my Excel sheets and we can see that in nice format. So there's been 8 prior iterations. Now, 3 of those prior 8 iterations were what I would consider failures. Now, one of those was a failure that still traded up in double-digit percents. One of them was basically like 0%. And another one was actually a loss of upper single-digit percents right here. So do you keep that in mind? It's not a given, but still, generally good is what I'd say. Anyways, the next thing that I'd be bringing you over to is the average return for specifically just the wins. And when I say the wins, I mean like the major trending moves that, did actually lead to new all-time highs. And again, doesn't mean that things can't chop back around. We saw the same thing over here in 2021. And this is what I'd say, just blindly buying at the cross is not the best idea. Fucking obviously. It's like people always have something to say about moving. It's like, yeah, no shit, you don't do it like that. No kidding. Wow. Amazing analysis. Average return was 56.16% over the course of an average of 64 days. Again, that's to the next major high, not necessarily the next all-time high, obviously. And I've also taken a first standard deviation measurement of this as well, giving us a range between 36% all the way to 86%. So, looking at it thus far, I think that there's a few things of interest. We've already seen from cross to current high an 18% move. Yeah, an 18% move over the course of about 6 to 9 days. So that already kind of eliminates, at least in my opinion, the likelihood that this is going to be a trap and more likely to be a trending move. The reason why I said that is because the prior trap moves, the failures basically, did not trade up that high. The highest one was 12.5%. And, we've already seen, I would say, decently higher than that. And of course, I've also looked at the average days for the trap moves as well. And, we're talking about 15, 24, 9. This one's already taken about 6 to 9 days. So, 69. The longer that this one goes on for, the more and more likely that it is to be a trending move. Just by the nature of trends, really. But yeah, so let's say that another couple weeks passes by and Bitcoin hasn't shit the bed below about 21.5, I think it was. Very, very likely that we'll see this one continue onwards and upwards based off the history of that. 50% or so move would put Bitcoin back around the last, or not the last major, but one of the major dumps that we saw from May of 2022, almost a year ago, where Bitcoin was trading at the shallow $30,000 territory. It'd also be around the 3-day 200 simple moving average, as you can see right here as well, that white moving average. And yeah, just generally speaking, that would be an area of interest. We can actually go back to this chart over here, and I'll finish up with the technicals, or maybe we have one more, but fuck it, I don't want to do the technicals right now. You already know them. You've seen them a million times. So let's go to the fundamentals. So the fundamentals, in this case, I do think are rather interesting. I want to bring up a chart that I've not spoken about in years, I think, because it's not been relevant in years, and that is the MVRV chart. Elsa's coughing in the background, but she's feeling a lot better, actually. She's feeling actually pretty damn good. She's even making jokes last night and talking, so that was a good sign. But yeah, going back into it here, the MVRV. So this is the market value versus realized value, or sorry, it's like what? It's market cap versus realized cap, basically. What you need to know about it is how it's operated in the past, as far as the weekly, higher term time frame scale goes. Basically, anytime that we've seen it go into the green zone down here and then get that first closure outside of the green zone, these have been essentially the beginning of major momentous rallies, actually. Major momentous rallies. In fact, I now realize that I kind of missed one over here, although I'm not sure how much this one really matters, being that it was literally in 2010. It works as well, so fair enough. But basically, these green vertical lines correspond to when that relationship occurred. We even saw it most recently in 2020 on the Rona dump. So that first sort of closure back above the top side of it has obviously happened well after the low. Basically in all these except for the 2021 happened well after the low, but it did get that momentous rally. So as far as timing things, it was a much greater indication of that. Anyways, in our current stint, we've seen Bitcoin hang below it for a while. In fact, it even got a slight closure above out here, but no close of a closure, and certainly not like a major closure above. And you can see that it's brushing up against the top side of it yet again. So is it going to close above there on today's weekly closure? It actually looks rather unlikely. So it's so if I do want to be bearish, this is the exact place you'd be looking for a major rejection. Again, back down below 21.5 or 21.6, I think it was. I become bearish again, at least for much greater moves. But if Bitcoin is going to experience a rejection, it probably happens from here. Now, personally speaking, I think that's less likely based off of what we spoke about before and what we'll speak about soon as well. But yes, I imagine we're probably going to see this week maybe dip down a little bit more, and then next week it'll have a chance. So that would essentially imply that, hey, if we're going to be looking for continuation very, 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 very likely happens over the next week or two. I would say 2 weeks at most. Hey, I thought my bot was off for the weekend, but looks like he wants to trade. Mr. Bot, my little servant, my little slave. That's right. Fuck you, AIs. You're my... that, I bet you in 1,000, maybe not 1,000, but 100 years from now, it's going to be bot lives matters, It's God, do you see how barbaric those people were, treating bots as their slaves? How heartless were they? Who knows? Anyways, yeah, so that's on the menu as well. And something that I'm that we'll be monitoring from here on out, especially on the weekends. And then the next thing, again, is something that I haven't spoken about in a very long time. Two things here, actually. The first thing is the Bitcoin rainbow indicator. That's right. It's LGBTQ time, and it's time to talk about the rainbows of the past. And what essentially is this? It's essentially just measuring the time from the the halvening, or whatever the fuck. Doesn't matter. Basically, it's as simple. When it turns a different color, it's bullish. But yeah, it actually has worked pretty damn well in the past, and it does make sense from its fundamental standpoint. It's hey, the closer that you are to a halving, the more and more likely that the lows are in. The lows typically get put in during the blue zones. And then Bitcoin typically takes off during the sort of magenta, I guess that color is. Yeah, magenta. Which I guess will start to fire off relatively soon. Or sorry, actually, maybe not that soon. But it's, again, still, the relationship with the past, that would be the next thing kind of on the cards. And, another thing that does suggest that, hey, we're more likely to have seen a macro low than not. Obviously, this is a major low, no shit. Bitcoin rallied up 60% off the lows. That conversation's been over for a long time. I'm not seeing anything new there. That was groundbreaking information back in, November, December, but not so much anymore. Anyways, the next thing is the pi cycle high and low indicator. Now, I think a lot of people are familiar with this one on the high side. where the pi cycle cross essentially has called all of the macro tops in Bitcoin's history incredibly well. Even on this most recent one over here, was it on the actual high? No, but was it, close enough to it in terms of price? Fuck yeah. Same thing over here, literally on the high. Same thing over here, literally on the high as well. And the interesting thing about this is that it also has a lesser known but equally as valuable pi cycle low indicator over here as well. And you can see that it is fired off, pretty accurately on the lows. These green vertical bars essentially showing where that cross has happened. And what I think is interesting about this is that, one, we saw this actually happen. We saw this actually happen way back on over here. Again, in terms of price, pretty fucking close to the low. In terms of time, no, just like on the highs over here. So maybe that's a fractal relationship. I don't know. I'm not going to make any more comments on that. But what I do think is rather interesting about this is that after that cross has happened, so for example, over here, and the low is in, or as it says, the low is in, and then the next major thing to be aware of is that when Bitcoin closes above the weekly the red moving average right here, which is the slowest moving average on this particular one. That is when, the upside momentum really gets going. And Bitcoin likes to hold on to it basically until the overall rally, well, maybe not until the overall rally ends, but until major shifts in macro direction happen, as you can see over here. What's interesting about this is that Bitcoin's going to have its chance to close above it for the first time, basically since May of last year as well. So you can see the same thing. We already looked at that one, but you can see the same thing over here. You can see the same thing over here as well. Once it grabs above it, likes to hang on above it as well. Not perfect, but again, just generally speaking, angles things in the right direction. So I thought that was rather interesting here too. Anyways, moving on now, I want to get into the hash ribbons indicator. Just another reminder with this one. On the weekly time frame, not the fucking daily, not the 3-day, not the 5-day, but the weekly, because the weekly has been the most accurate with it. Anytime that we've seen this indicator representing the hash ribbons, representing the hash power, put into a nice indicator format by Mr. Charles Caprioli, I think it is. He's actually one of the few macro guys that I think, or sorry, not macro guys, but fundamental guys I think who has a fucking clue. Basically, what do you need to know about it? Well, I'm not going to explain the indicator, but what I will explain to you is that when you get that blue buy signal, when you get the fucking blue buy signal, the low has been in prior to that, and Bitcoin has essentially, gone up and to the right. So what essentially am I saying? Well, that's not fully accurate because I forgot to mention the prior point. Okay, so there's been 18 prior times where we've seen this particular thing fire off. So that means that the blue buy signal happened. And of those 18 times, 16 were with that fashion, meaning that the blue buy signaled that the prior low to the blue buy was the low before Bitcoin, ever went below it ever again, ever. So in this case, for example, you get the blue buy right here. Green vertical bar represents that. Where's your prior low? Your prior low is like right here, basically. And obviously Bitcoin, does not close below there ever again. Now, it can wick there, that's fine, but no closures below. That was obviously not true in this scenario over here for the Rona dump time. This low over here was very obviously violated on a closing basis. And then also more recently, in 2021, on this prior low right here, Bitcoin did trade below obviously 38,000 bucks throughout the rest of the year. So, it's not perfect, but 16 out of 18, pretty damn good. So again, this one would also imply that basically, 16,000, 17,000 bucks, probably the low, at least statistically speaking, more likely than not. Do we have enough time? Let me see. 18 minutes. Fuck. Yeah, why not? Okay, so one of the last things I want to get to is the accumulation distribution indicator. Basically, anytime that we've seen this one have a slope change in the extremes, that's correlated with macro shifts in direction. I think I have them marked off over here. So you can see low, low, low. And while we haven't seen the slope change just yet to an upside slope, it's still downside. It has massively reduced its curvature to the downside, as you can see right here. And something that I do think is of interest is that on CME, it does actually have an upside slope. Now, do I trust CME over the index right now? No, because the index does have a lot more history, but CME typically does take precedence when it comes to just indicators in general. Like they seem to play out more on CME than spot price action. And so that would be another thing that does say, hey, probably has a major low end. Probably has a macro low end, obviously has a macro low end, maybe even a major low. Just want to see this one get a positive slope coming into March, which we still got another 2 weeks left of this month of whatever this one's called. And then last thing, or maybe two last things. I might as well just make this one long as fuck. How about that? Monthly stochastic once again right here. Hey, what the hell is this? Is that necessary trading view? Just like one massive fucking thing in my face. Like, why do you have to do this? So the monthly stochastic oscillator, basically we've seen the monthly stochastic oscillator get into the critical zone, this zone right here, only 3 other prior times in Bitcoin's history, and crossed to the upside from that critical zone. Guess what? They've all been macro lows. And in this case, we actually did see this one cross the upside coming into February. So this will remain with upside posturing as long as Bitcoin closes this month of February above 16,800. So far, so good. Crazier things have happened, certainly, but so far, so good, I'd say. And again, referencing the first major move off the lows. So for those 3 prior times, I'm just measuring the first major move off the lows. So in this case, for example, this would be from cross to next major high. Same thing over here. I did find a really interesting relationship that there's about 250% moves. In fact, it's 284, 238, and 238 again, rounding a bit there, but you get the idea, which, would suggest upside as well. I'm not gonna do the calculation on that because that's gonna be like way too much fucking boolah-ishness, and I just want to be relaying the statistics, not like implanting ideas in your head. I think that's not real analysis. So yeah, we have that. Again, would also kind of suggest that a low is probably in, and then for the last thing. My last trick, we have obviously monthly hidden bullish divergence that was confirmed in January, and this is actually how all prior bear markets have bottomed. 1, 2, well, maybe 3 over here. We did not have enough information on this particular one to populate it. That first one in 2011, that is. And then also the monthly jewel did turn white and is going to have a chance to turn that cyan color, which is the next sort of brick within this long-term building that has signaled that, upside momentum is about to really get going. I've marked off the last few times where this happened. It's 2015, 2019, and here as well in 2023. Now, again, we did see in 2014, 2015 a retest of those lows. That was okay, but onwards and forwards from there. And you could even say that we saw a retest of the lows in 2019 and 2020 as well. I mean, close enough, right? I do still think long term that while Bitcoin probably does have more upside, it could very easily look like this at some point, where it gets like a quick spike down, maybe not that far, but like to like 20,000, let's say, and then back up, something like that. I do think it's still within the cards, but that's, we're getting way, way far ahead of ourselves right now. Do keep in mind that CME closed the week at 24,870, so we probably hang around here until the new week. And after that, it's game on yet again tomorrow, and we'll come back on that note. So with that said, I want to be wishing you the best as always. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully soon. Forgot to show Bybit. Yep, Bybit has their promotion. Bybit has promotion. It's in the description. Read the fine fucking print. How about that? Yeah, there you go. Have a nice Sunday in your life. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully soon.